Jovanka is running for state senate for more than a decade. She's served the East Bay, fighting for working families, a clean environment, safety, and equity. She did that while working full-time as a mental health specialist and wraparound facilitator for over 20 years. As a Richmond City Council member, she helped usher in a suite of progressive reforms that transformed the city, collecting $100 million in new taxes from Chevron, instituting a $15 minimum wage, creating the first California rent control in 30 years. Currently, Jovanka sits on the AC Transit Board, Ward 1, where she has continued bringing in progressive values and equity for transit users. Now she's running for state senate to become the only first Black, Latina, LGBTQ immigrant to the California State Senate and to bring true progressive representation to all of District 7. Jovanka is and always has been corporate donation free and is fighting in this race for a Green New Deal, universal health care, and money out of politics. Jovanka will talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll introduce Nikki Bas, and then Nikki will talk. And then we'll have Q&A after that.
All right, well, good afternoon, siblings. This is impressive. You know, there's a big football game going on and the skies are blue, and look at what we're doing. We are caring about our community and the planet. So I really do appreciate you all taking the time. Jovanka Beckles, she, her pronoun. Thank you so much for that introduction. One of the things that I am most proud of throughout my public service is the fact that from day one, I have run as a corporate free candidate, and I have unwavered on that. But one of the things that, because you probably know that, but one of the things that may not be quite evident is the fact that not only am I corporate free, but I also do not support other candidates. I do not support candidates who are corporate free. I mean, who are not corporate free. So in other words, in order for me to give my support to other candidates, I want to make sure that they are also corporate free candidates, because that's really how we're going to get things that we need. That's how we're going to get the things that we have been fighting for such a long time, tirelessly. We're here fighting now. This is a sort of a fight. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for your support, your past support in all of the races, your support in this one. You know, because it truly, I'm honored, because it says a lot. It says that you all have seen me in action, and you have seen me do exactly as I promised in all of my races. You have seen me not compromise when it comes to obtaining the kinds of policies that improve the quality of life for the residents in this district, for the residents, for workers, for children. And so I truly do, I'm proud to be standing in this battle, in this fight, in this movement for people-powered, people-first, corporate-free government that puts us first as human beings. So thank you for that. And in this race, once again, as in all the races, I am the only corporate free candidate. And I have been saying this since May. I am the only corporate free candidate in this race, regardless of who is in this race. And I'm proud of that. And that we can amplify this message, that this message resonates with the majority of voters in this district, that people are beginning to really see the correlation between them having less and less. Meanwhile, corporations are having more and more. Their wealth is increasing exponentially. Meanwhile, the rest of us are becoming poorer and poorer. And that's what I am fighting for at the state level. You know, as a council member, twice elected council member, my promises were met, and I continue to be then and now someone who listens to the challenges that the community has, and then get to work at solving them collectively. I don't do anything, and even all of these policies that I'm proud to have authored, brought forward, passed, that gained Richmond national recognition, that's currently given a AC Transit Board national recognition as the best transportation system in North California, the APTA Awards. That award was given to AC Transit because of the policies that I brought forward together with the community. And those three, and the city, our district manager, I don't think he, in the moment, was thinking about like that he was praising me, but what he said, and I even was a bit surprised. He says that we were recognized. We attention was we gained attention because of three policies. The first one was appreciation pay, that I was able to work with the workers to end East Bay DSA and other grassroots organizations to demand that MTC release $66 million. And together as with the community, they did. And then I then directed staff to provide appreciation pay for our workers, because unlike many of us, we got to continue to work, but safely via Zoom. We were nice and safe, but our bus operators, our clerks, all of the folks in the transportation industry, those that were providing this kinds of services for essential workers, they had to go in. And so I thought that it was incredibly important that we showed our appreciation for them coming in. And so every single worker at AC Transit, the workers on the frontline workers, all received between $2,000 and $4,000 each, because as a way to show our appreciation for our transportation sector employees. The next thing that brought attention was the fact that I directed staff to get PPEs for workers and riders. And then the third one was the protective barrier for the operators to be able for them to be safe, not just during COVID, but safe overall. And when he said those three things, I was like, wait a second, that's all of the policies that I brought forward with the community. Wait a minute. That's fascinating. So I'm really proud, because none of these things, and I tell people this in all of the forums, I don't profess to be the brightest person on stage or anywhere in the world. But what I do is I listen, and we together as a community, we come up with these policies. So all of those policies came together with my collaboration with the workers and the community. As a Richmond City Council member, again, my lived identity and my work identity informed all of the policies that I brought forward, that has now gained Richmond attention for having crime reduced. Like we are the only we are the city, I'd say the only one where crime truly dropped. And the reason for that was because, once again, we elected corporate free candidates and elected officials in the city of Richmond, and we went right to work. We went right to work to providing for our community, and not the bottom line of multi-billion-dollar corporations. And so it was because we addressed the root causes of crime that Richmond now is no longer on the worst city, the highest city with crime across the country. Richmond, people want to move back to Richmond because of the things that we have been able to accomplish, and that is, and I'm proud to have been the one to bring these forward, raising the minimum wage to the highest in the state, bringing forth ban the box for what we call the fairness in employment, where it as a city, we deleted the question that you had, where that says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And because of my lived and work experience, I saw that recidivism was high. So what are we going to do to address that? Well, that was one of the things we did. We took that question off the box. And now the state of California followed in Richmond's footsteps. The other thing that we did, brought the first rent control policy to the first rent control policy in the state of California in 30 years, and now it's a movement. Rent control is a movement. The other thing, raise the minimum wage to the highest. Again, this is all a movement that I'm proud to have been a part of in starting right here in Richmond. So then there's the environmental aspect of things that I'm incredibly proud of, and incredibly proud to be endorsed by grassroots, environmental organizations like APEN and CBE and SEHA, Oh my goodness. You know, so many clean water. And that's because they know that I will be a champion for the environment, just as I have been historically. Have not gotten into office and sold us down the river. That's something that I've never done and never will do. Because I'm accountable only to you all. Um, and so my goodness, I could go on with so much. We held Chevron accountable. There's now a statewide lawsuit against the fossil fuel industry that we started in Richmond while I was still on the city council, and now it's taken hold. And you know, so many different cities across the state have joined in that litigation, that lawsuit, because the fossil fuel industry knew damn well what they were doing years and years ago. They knew that they were killing the people and the planet. They knew that the product that they are pushing is, you know, is deadly and will be, you know, literally the death of us and the planet. And they hid that. And so Richmond, when I was on the council with along with my peers, we brought forward that lawsuit that's now taken you know hold throughout the state. Oh my goodness, we also I'm proud of the fact that I was able to work with the community in partnership and collaboration with the community to stop coal exportation through the Port of Oakland. Richmond, we were one of the first ones to ban styrofoam and ban plastics and such. And I could go on and on, but where I'm going to stop and I want to emphasize is this is what we can have at the state level. When we start to elect corporate free candidates throughout the different aspects of government, we will then, as a people, as we will win. We will be able to have the things that we so desperately need. And the biggest one of all is, of course, having a planet that's sustainable that we can live on with clean air and clean water. That's the most important because everything else doesn't matter if there's no planet, right? It doesn't matter if, you know, if we're making a good wage. It doesn't matter if we've got rights for women. It doesn't matter if we have health care or free college. And I say all that because those are the platforms, these are the things that I will definitely be championing. But none of that matters if we have no planet. And so for me, of course, a Green New Deal is the most important thing in helping us to transition away from fossil fuels and into a green new economy that will benefit all workers, not just some. But when we transition away from this extractive economy into a green new economy, we can train people to transition from from that economy to the new green one. We can allow folks to get an education, quality education for free. We can really take care of ourselves and each other. And so I'll stop there because I know you all probably have so many questions. And again, incredibly honored to be in partnership with you in this race. And yeah, we definitely need your help. We need your help to come out and canvas as a grassroots corporate free candidate. And on top of that, a Black woman. Black women statistically have the hardest time fundraising. So for those of you who are able, I'd be honored to have any little bit, and every little bit helps. And even so this close to the deadline to vote, because we still would like to be able to get more signs. Our campaign is I would say the only one, only because there have been so very little. But we have the most yard signs. We have been canvassing since May. Our opponents just started canvassing 2 weeks ago. So we understand what it means to be people powered, that it isn't just about a whole bunch of TV commercials that is going to get you to win. It's about us standing in solidarity with each other across all aspects of our lives and demographics and affiliations. Because when we come together, we win. Thank you. So I'm happy to take any questions you all have, siblings. I appreciate all the hard work that all of you continue to do for a better world.
If it's okay, unless there's an urgent question, I think maybe we'll have Nikki speak, and then we'll have questions, for either or both.
Okay.
So
All
let
right.
me do a quick introduction of Nikki. Nikki Fortunato Bas is the president of the Oakland City Council. And she's a lifelong community organizer, nonprofit director, Filipino American, and working mom, guided by her lived experiences as the daughter of immigrants whose struggles inspired her to lead coalitions fighting for a living wage, an end to food insecurity, and access to affordable health care and housing. Previously, the executive director of the Partnership for Working Families and the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy. She's been honored on multiple occasions for her transformative visionary leadership. She's currently serving as Oakland's president, leading the fight for an East Bay where every family is healthy, safe, and housed. As our county supervisor, Nikki's priorities are the 3 H's: homelessness, housing, healthcare. She believes bold leadership to end homelessness, expand job creation, and provide comprehensive mental health, substance abuse programs, and transitional housing are necessary. Nikki will lead the fight for housing for working families to be able to afford and ensure that every family has access to quality health care. Nikki Bas, go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you. And definitely thank you to Director Beckles for sharing your just incredible commitment and consistency, leading the struggles that you have been leading and updating us on your campaign. I also want to thank you for taking time this evening. I don't happen to be a football fan anymore, so I wasn't planning to watch the game, and certainly appreciate being here with all of you. It's a real honor for me to have your endorsement and your support. I'll share a little bit about my trajectory into elected office, the work that I've done on the council, what I'm hoping to do as a supervisor, and what the opportunity is. And Greg just did such a great job sharing some background information. I'll try not to be redundant. So maybe just to start, I'll share with you, and some of you know me a little bit. I spent a couple decades as an organizer and, was really inspired, like you heard, by my parents who were immigrants from the Philippines. They were healthcare workers. My dad was actually a whistleblower. And so from their experience, as well as experience as a volunteer working on worker rights campaigns, I got to see firsthand that we've got systemic issues in our country. And those issues are racism, economic inequality, sexism, heteropatriarchy. I got to see that really early on. And that really brought out a fire in my belly to continue to organize. And so I've had the privilege over a couple decades to be organizing in the East Bay, a little bit in San Francisco too. I spent a lot of years working as an unpaid organizer before I had the privilege of actually getting a job with an organization that organizes. And over the course of that work, I'm really proud that I've been able to help lead labor community coalitions. And that includes work at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and elsewhere, organizing the student anti-sweatshop movement. It includes work in Emeryville, which is also part of the district I seek to represent, organizing hotel workers and paving the ground for more representation in their government and more representation of workers, frankly, as well as equitable economic development. And the bulk of my work has been in Oakland. That has included making sure that the old Army base, as it got redeveloped, would have good living wage jobs that are union jobs, that are accessible to local folks through local hiring goals, as well as accessible to formerly incarcerated folks through a ban the box. And that goes for not just the construction jobs, but all the jobs at the old Army base. And I also worked on a coalition called Lift Up Oakland, and this was back in 2014, where we worked to raise the minimum wage in Oakland. At the time, it was $12 an hour because the fight for 15 was just getting started. And we also added paid sick leave. And so that's some of the work that I did as an organizer. And in 2017, my neighbors, the community, labor organizations, they asked me to run for office because we were not happy with the leadership that we had on the Oakland City Council at the time. Oakland has really struggled, probably like many other cities in the region, with having a much more progressive base than our elected officials. And we heard from Director Beckles that that's also been the Richmond experience and the larger East Bay experience, I think. So I got recruited to run for office, and I've really been trying to do this work in partnership with the broader community. People-powered government is sometimes what I call it. I also call it co-governance, just really building my agenda and leading together with the community. And that's what I hope to do on the Board of Supervisors. But just looking at the work I've done over the past 5 years on the Oakland City Council, I ran, and this was obviously before COVID, with an agenda around affordable housing, homelessness solutions, worker rights. And so on affordable housing, I'm really proud to have done some strong work around tenants and affordable housing. When COVID hit, just 10 days after the county declared shelter in place, because of my collaboration with tenant organizations like ACE and others, we were able to author and pass the strongest COVID eviction moratorium in the entire state. And I actually shared that with Berkeley as well as the county, and they passed similar policies. I was also able to work with a number of organizations to pass a fair chance housing policy, so that folks returning home from from incarceration would have an opportunity to get housed. And that actually is the strongest in the whole nation. And, those two things are things I'm very proud of. The other thing I'm really proud of is really looking at how do we take housing off the speculative market. So I was working with ACE and the Oakland Community Land Trust prior to entering office, and learned that for Oakland, about 80% of our rental housing stock are smaller apartment buildings, 25 units or less. And if we were able to convert those to permanently affordable housing, then we would have higher levels of affordable housing in our city. So I partnered with Oakland Community Land Trust and ACE. And in 2019, we created a program starting with $14 million so that tenants can purchase their homes with land trusts. And we've been able to do this with dozens of families. That's a program that continues and has been recapitalized, and it's a way to promote home ownership as well as permanent affordability that's community owned. I'm also really proud that in 2022, I was the lead author on putting an affordable housing bond on the ballot. So Measure U was passed, and that gives Oakland unprecedented funds, $350 million for affordable housing. And I think we all know that part of our housing crisis has been exacerbated by the Reagan years, when less federal funding went to housing, less state funding went to housing after Jerry Brown dissolved redevelopment. And so cities and counties are really stuck with having to fund affordable housing without the resources, but we're doing our best, and we also have to continue working at the state and the federal level. So those are some of the things we've been able to achieve on housing. Around worker rights, I'll just mention a few things. During COVID, we worked on a grocery workers hazard pay bonus of $5 an hour. So at the time, frontline grocery workers could have some additional security. We created a Department of Workplace and Employment Standards to enforce our local labor laws. And I'm really proud as the council president that I've been able to partner with our public sector unions and make sure that we've been able to bargain fair contracts. We haven't had a strike, and I haven't had to walk a picket line with City of Oakland workers since 2017. And then in terms of safety, I'll just note that the world really changed for all of us, and certainly for me as an elected official, when George Floyd was murdered. That really created an uprising and a groundswell across the entire country, and certainly in the East Bay, in terms of how we look at safety. And so in 2021, working on my first budget as council president, I really listened to what the community was saying. I co-led a reimagining public safety task force and was able to implement some of those recommendations, including a deeper investment in violence prevention in our communities and in our schools, as well as creating an alternative crisis response program in the fire department. The audits I've called for show that about 60% of our service calls, our 911 calls, are for non-criminal, non-violent issues. And so we have to make sure that we're addressing those, but they don't have to be addressed by armed police. So those are some of the things we've been able to move forward in terms of community safety. And I'm really committed to advancing a comprehensive, holistic approach because we know that safer communities are our best resource communities. If you have a community where people have access to jobs, housing, healthcare, and education, that's really the foundation for creating the safety that our neighborhoods deserve. And then finally, given my commitment to the Green Party's values around sustainability, I'll just highlight a couple things. One is that I worked on co-authoring legislation to have all electric buildings as we construct new homes, new commercial buildings. I know that's caught up in the court system, but I think it's really important that we make that commitment. And then finally, the city of Oakland is working to create a number of resilience hubs across our city. And I'm really proud to have partnered with groups like APEN, the Friends of Lincoln Square Park in Chinatown and downtown. And we've actually been able to secure millions of dollars so that we can renovate our existing rec center in Chinatown, downtown, and create not only an expanded rec center for the larger population, but also a resilience hub. So we'll continue to have multi-generational programming, but we will also have a space for people to go in terms of climate emergencies or other emergencies. So those are some of the things I've been able to do on the city council at Oakland. And all of this is very much in partnership with the community, with labor, with the constituents that I listen to and that I hold myself accountable to. It's really about building that partnership and winning it together. And I think in terms of the county, there's a real opportunity to put forward a progressive vision and to continue some of the progressive legacy that no longer exists. I mean, certainly with the passing of Supervisors Chan and Valle and some of the important work that they did, they're not there to carry that mantle. And that includes things like a deep commitment to equitable healthcare on the part of Supervisor Chan and on the part of Supervisor Valle. He was working to reimagine adult justice and really looking at how to create more accountability and equity in the criminal legal system. And of course, Supervisor Carson has been a champion around health equity, affordable housing, economic development. I think it's really important to make sure we have a strong progressive voice that will work with the community. And, I don't want to be Oakland centric, but I do think it's important that the largest city, Oakland as well as Berkeley, given the issues that we are grappling with in terms of homelessness and mental health care in particular, that we have a champion who's really going to partner at the county with each of our cities as well as the unincorporated areas. And so my agenda, together with the community, is to really continue pushing. In Oakland, for example, I joined the county's homeless point in time count and got to talk with a number of people who were currently unhoused, from a veteran in his 70s who's been living on our streets for decades to a younger person who is newly homeless who appears to need mental health supports. And our cities don't have the resources to provide those services, but the county does as our healthcare and social service agency. And so I'm really looking forward to, as a supervisor, how we build that partnership and share those resources so that we can address sheltering people, providing affordable housing, and for folks who need additional support around healthcare, substance use, mental health, that the county does a better job in providing that. I think there's also opportunities in our criminal legal system to make sure we take a regional approach, and especially for the county, having heard that just this past week, another person was found dead at the county jail at Santa Rita. We cannot continue to treat mental health illness as a criminal issue and incarcerate people. There's a real opportunity to make sure we're providing care for people and creating inpatient and outpatient treatment that is centered in the community. So there's a number of things that I'm hoping to achieve, and I don't want to talk too long. I think at this point, I'll just say I'm gaining a lot of momentum with my campaign. It's obviously a sprint because the seat just opened up in December. The primary's in 3 weeks, but I'm gaining a lot of momentum. We've been canvassing, we've been fundraising to get our message out, and we have a number of endorsements, and I'll share a couple of them, which include the sole endorsement of the Alameda Labor Council, Our Revolution East Bay, the East Bay Democratic Socialists of America, and a number of progressive organizations and other labor unions. So again, I'm really proud to have the Green Party's support. Hope that you all can also join me over the next 3 weeks as we canvass, as we raise money, as we get our message out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki Fortunato Bas and Jovanka Beckles. We are going to open it up for questions for one or both of you. So if anyone who would like to make a comment or question, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and I will help just keep us on track here. At this point, we have plenty of time, so let's hear what people have to say. I see Bill Balderston. Go ahead and unmute.
There we go. Bill Balderson, he, him, a member of the County Council of the Alameda Green Party. And I just want to say how proud we are to be able to endorse you and publicize your campaigns. And our voter guide is going out now, which reaches quite a few people. So that's one way, hopefully, we are helpful. I guess two questions. One, for all the programs that we know we need, how do you think about progressive ways of generating more funds, especially in regard to making the rich and corporate forces provide more money? And the second is, although I know it's different in terms of how one look at this at the county or state level, as an active member of the OEA, Oakland Education Association, what are some of your thoughts on the policies about public education that should be a priority? So, thanks.
Do you want any one of us to start, or was that
Either one of you may jump in. That's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll start, and first of all, I just appreciate the work that teachers do. So definitely appreciating you for your service. There's there's few policies that we can do at the state level, and of course, it all starts with as the word that we often think of, and that's political will, right? Political will, it determines whether we are funded or not. And having worked, as a wraparound facilitator for 23 years for the county with children's mental health, really understanding some of the issues. So I think that, on the state level, we can fund, we can fund and encourage and assist communities and having community schools. The issue with absenteeism often isn't necessarily just about children not attending school because they just don't feel like it. It often has to do with different factors, and some of those include going to appointments, medical appointments, mental health therapy, group therapy, dental appointments. So many different things that can happen. And then there's also anxiety. Some kids have so much anxiety in going to school that it becomes really severe for a child and the parents, and who have to try to provide the kind of support that the child needs to get them out of the door, which can be a lot. So I think that, if we fund public schools, first of all, make sure that our public schools are funded, but also then just, funding, um, uh, cities and counties and districts, to be able to have community schools, I think would be one way to reduce the amount of absenteeism. And I don't think that, so I think that we have to develop a different funding mechanism, funding system for funding our schools. Then the question that you started with was, then how do we, in essence, get corporations to pay their fair share of taxes. And that's why I'm a big supporter of reforming Prop 13. We have to reform Prop 13, and create ways to ensure that corporations are paying their fair share of taxes, and that we, as ordinary people, are not paying more in taxes than these multi-billion-dollar corporations and their CEOs. So reforming Prop 13 is one way. The other way, I think that, we have to create more progressive, tax opportunities, systems. Regressive ones don't work. People get tired of, homeowners or get tired of having to pay so much and into it, when once again, billion-dollar companies, billionaires aren't paying their fair share of taxes. And so I'd be a champion at the state level to ensure that, corporations pay their fair share of taxes, that we tax things like ride shares, that we have to, and we can use that money to not only change the way that we fund public schools, but also that we fund public transportation. And that again is a matter of political will. Really proud of the fact that, AC Transit has is really operating above and beyond other agencies, and the fact that we are really working towards a more sustainable future by phasing out all of our diesel powered buses. We have the largest fleet of ZEB buses, zero emission buses, and really working towards that, for us to be able to meet our goal and the challenge of reducing our carbon footprint as a public agency. So to answer that question, just to in review, we have to tax corporations, make them pay their fair share of taxes in order to fund the different public safety nets that we need as a community.
Thank you for that. I'll go next and share that I think the key is about progressive taxation. In Oakland, we had a flat tax rate for our businesses for decades that haven't been updated in decades. And so I spent about 3 years working to put forward a ballot measure in order to update that tax, make it more progressive or tiered, meaning giving small businesses a break and having the larger corporations pay their fair share. I was able to get it on the ballot in 2022, and also is, PG&E, Clorox, and others are paying more of their fair share of city services. And so at a time when, Oakland is facing budget deficits, it's so far been able to raise over $20 million a year in brand new revenue. So that's certainly what we need to continue to do. At the county largely relies on property taxes. The measures they've put forward to voters have been sales taxes. So I will be looking at what is possible at the county. However, I think there's huge opportunity at the state. I also support reforming Prop 13. I think when we're able to pass schools and communities first, that will be really game changing in terms of refunding our communities. I know there's been some legislation for a millionaire's tax as well. So we have to make sure that the tremendous wealth that's here in the East Bay and the broader Bay Area is really shared. And, again, I agree with the point about it takes political will and leadership, definitely at the state level as well as the federal level. And, our cities and counties also have to push as much as we can. In terms of public education, I'm fully supportive of a deeper investment and a full investment in our public schools. I think schools and communities first, when that does go back to the voters, is going to help do that so that we have community schools. At the city of Oakland, I've really been able to look at how our resources fill in the gaps to support community schools. For example, I work to extend the Oakland Fund for Children and Youth another 12 years. And so the city has a $18 to $19 million program that supports services to kids and their families. Our violence prevention program as well. I worked on a youth intervention program in our high schools so that a number of our public high schools now have teams of 3 folks, a violence interrupter, a violence interrupter, a life coach, and a gender-based specialist. And those are really important in terms of disrupting cycles of violence that might happen for high school students. At the county, I think there's certainly an opportunity to focus on children's and youth mental health, given the county as our social service provider. And then there's also a coalition of organizations who I've been working with that includes the Urban Peace Movement and others who are also looking at reimagining youth justice. And the premise of that is really looking at how does the county focus on a health-based, care-based approach to justice issues, providing services, really encouraging restorative justice and other ways instead of incarcerating young people. So those are some of the things I'm hoping to do, and again, in partnership with our community.
All right, thanks both for those responses. Up next, Orlando, please go ahead and unmute.
I think Pam was before me. Pam tried to raise her hand before I go after Pam.
Orlando, it's a little hard to hear you. Can you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I said Pam had her hand up before mine, so I respect the women's first.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that. Pam, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Pam, go ahead and let's see. Let me find Pam here. Pam Spivak. Pam, you're still muted. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I've been on the county council of Alameda Greens for about 18, 25 years somewhere. You forget after a while. But, we always say follow the money. And I think a big part of our problem is that the inequality of salaries, for instance. I don't know if that comes under your purview in some point or another, but I think it's a large thing because poverty has been on the rise. I'm a senior and fixed income, and rents keep going up. And I don't know if you have a way of addressing any of this. So I'll put that out generally to both of you. And thank you for being here. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Sure. I don't know that there's the political will to say cap salaries, but obviously when folks are making billions of dollars, that leads to just intense economic inequality, which we're all experiencing. At the county, I think one of the things that we can do is look at making sure our workers are paid a living wage. I've been meeting with a number of our healthcare workers in particular, and it's just not sustainable to be paid such low wages if you're providing, say, long-term care, or if you work for a nonprofit agency that is providing homeless outreach. Folks need to earn a living wage. They need to receive benefits. They need to be represented by a union, and ultimately, they need to live in the communities that they are serving. And I'm talking to more and more people who aren't able to live in the county because the rents and the housing costs are so high. So I am going to be working with a number of our unions and our workers to make sure that folks can earn a living wage. In particular, our long-term healthcare workers are looking for a $30 wage. And I think that's only fair, just given those hours are, those jobs are 24/7 in terms of providing care.
That what you just said, stories like yours, Pam, just always breaks my heart. I just came back from a local, small business owner who I love this place. They have, good beer, really good food. They managed to make it through the pandemic, but are struggling now. And and he's a supporter. He's supported Richmond progressives for a long time. And so hearing his story also breaks my heart. And that is, he wants to pay he agrees workers should absolutely, be paid a living wage. He says, and yet everything though is going up with the, and the more that prices have to go up, because of course he's going to comply, they deserve it, the less he's able to make. And that's because everything else is going up. Food, the cost of food, the cost of rent, the cost of doing business as a small business owner versus, chain stores. So just hearing, seniors who, are at the brink of being evicted because they missed, they missed the payment on their rent. And this is rent controlled, subsidized housing, and even trying to pay a few dollars of that rent becomes a challenge. And these kinds of stories break my heart. So like the question is, what then can we do? And I'm gonna tell you, I think we're siblings here, right? We're comrades on this call. And I think that we really have to figure out a way how we have to have conversations about how this works. Because as a person, as a candidate, an elected official here, who actually during my tenure on the Richmond City Council managed to raise the minimum wage to the highest in the state of California. We did that. We helped set off the 5 for 15. We did that in Richmond because we started that conversation and we made it happen. So then what happens is you hear CEOs talk about, well, all these union workers, they need to learn a lesson. So he hopes the economy tanks so that we can learn a lesson and stop begging for, basically crumbs. And so the conversation that I believe needs to happen is the wage disparity, the fact that these, CEOs are making thousands times what the lowest paid worker is getting paid. I believe that there should be, you said it, Nikki, there should be caps, but that's not going to happen. And the reason why it's not going to happen right now is because we keep electing people who are taking corporate money. Once we get this movement really, sets in where everyone, all of us, working class, poor folk, where we get that we are powerful beyond more. There are more of us than there are of them. We are the 99%. It's only 1% of them, but so we are the majority. So if we can start electing corporate free candidates to these positions of power, like the state, the state, in the nation, counties, then we can have some really bold policies that addresses the wage disparity that is allowed to happen in this capitalist system. Because even if we raise the minimum wage, and I'm being a little silly about this, but just to make my point, even if every worker earned $100 an hour, that was the minimum wage, then but if our rent still keeps going up, we're never going to catch up to a point where we can actually afford to go out and have a nice little meal at our wonderful local homegrown business. We'll never get to that point because we're always trying to catch up because they are greedy. And if we don't get a hold and control of this greed, it doesn't matter how much we as elected officials insist that workers should be paid, they're going to continue to make sure that their bottom line is always, full. And so we got to come up with, we have to have policies, but right now we don't have the political will. We don't have enough people who are only beholden to the community. We have a lot of people who are beholden to these corporations. And so we just never seem to get ahead. And that really angers me. And which is why they fight so hard to keep people like me out of positions of power, because they know what my agenda. My agenda is to ensure that we have a thriving, healthy community, and that greedy corporations need to pay their fair share and stop price gouging. The minute we get a little raise, they raise it because they're going to make sure that they make their profits. And it's insane, because it's insane profit. The amount of profit that they're making, they don't have to do that. If they don't have to keep raising prices to maintain that, grotesque amount of profits, right? Their bottom line. But if there are no policies, right, there's no regulation around it, then it's never going to happen. But I believe that in this movement, for the people, this movement to bring greedy capitalists, to some kind of control, then we're going to keep doing this. The California state's legislature, has a supermajority right now of Democrats, and yet we still don't have a healthcare for all, right, single payer system. We're still all struggling with increasing rents and all of this. We're still struggling to pay co-pays and pay for prescriptions, and that shouldn't be the case because we should have people who are representing the people and not working to increase the bottom line of corporations.
All right, next, let's go back to Orlando. Orlando, go ahead and unmute.
Got you a two-part question. The first part question is for Jovanka. How do you use your basketball leadership when you're getting outscored and when you get into the fourth quarter?
How do I use it? Man, I like the sports metaphor. Well, you always have to think ahead, right? You have to think ahead of the part of the opponent. What are they going to do if I go this way? So we always have to, we have to, and look, and I couldn't do it by myself, right? Because when we're talking about a team, right, there's no one person that's going to bring the team home. It has to be a team effort. So always thinking that way, always thinking that it's a team effort, and no one person, should be shining above the rest of the team. So, I believe that those skills are used, in negotiating, in just, being fair, being honest, like I've never won a game where I cheated. I've never felt the need to cheat because why? Because it doesn't feel good, at least not to me. And so I've always felt like, being above board in all of my ways of operating, in this realm, in this, public service realm. So yeah, it's a team effort. That's how we do it.
And the next question for Nikki, who I've been doing for many, many years. How would you take the challenge of being one of the new members on the county council? And what would be your relationship with the bunky black party that does the cleanup? How would you use your power to help expedite the cleanliness of Oakland?
Thanks for that question, Orlando. Appreciate it. And appreciate you too. As a newer council, as a newer board member on the supervisors, I think I could learn pretty fast. I went from being an activist and organizer to an Oakland elected official. And, I'm pretty proud that in 2 years I became the council president and started leading our budget process. The business tax that we worked on was very complex. Some of the renter protections we've worked on has been complex, the ballot measures. And so, like Jovanka, I also believe it's about we and us, and it's about building a team around you, sometimes having smarter people around you as well who can really hone in on the things that you know less about so that you have a well-rounded perspective. And so, you know, I'm obviously hoping to make it into the top 2 and then go on to the general election in November. And in that time period between March and November, I'm really hoping to build a team around different issue areas. So everything from, you know, homelessness and healthcare, mental health care, to just the basics, right? Like you said, keeping our streets clean, making sure we're dealing with illegal dumping, because the city and the county have not yet figured out how to do that. So I'm fully committed to doing that. So for me, it's going to be using the time between now and March, and then March and November, to not only win, but to start building teams that can really work with me so I can have a head start on both the issues and, you know, just having folks in the community who can be organizing with me. And, you know, I'm pretty proud that I've been able to work, even if I have political differences with folks, I've been able to work with other members of the council, you know, the city administrator, the city attorney, our department heads. And so I'm going to take, you know, some of that humility to learn, as well as that coalition building experience I have, so that I can be effective. But it's also going to depend a lot on the relationships in the team. You know, in terms of working with you and your folks around keeping our streets and our communities clean, working with the broader Black community, you know, I am really humble about potentially taking on this seat. I am also someone, you know, I've been in the Bay Area since 1990, but I grew up in Virginia, just outside DC, in a very segregated Black and white community where there were just a handful of other Asian immigrants. And so I have experienced firsthand, even with my own family, anti-Blackness. I have experienced how, despite the progress of the civil rights movement, there's still incredibly intense Black racism. You know, hats off to you, Jovanka, for continuing to push, because we know that Black women in particular face, you know, some of the biggest challenges. And I see that with my colleague, Carol Fife. And so I will have a lot of humility and, you know, welcome leadership from the Black community in terms of how I serve, and will be in partnership in multiracial solidarity, but also recognizing that if we address anti-Blackness and racism, structural racism in our society, that will help everyone in our community. And, you know, I certainly know that I stand on the shoulders of the civil rights movement and the Black Panthers. And, you know, I'm also proud that I also have the endorsement of a number of Black leaders in our community. And thanks for that question, Orlando. We should definitely stay in touch.
Mhm. All right, next, James McFadden. Go ahead and unmute.
Thanks. First, I just want to remind everybody that campaigns take money, and you know, so everybody please donate to these campaigns. I just made a donation to Jovanka. I think it's important to send out to all your email lists and tell them to donate. Way back, I worked on Jovanka's campaign against Buffy Wicks, who is kind of the corporate machine candidate. And as much as I thought we had a chance there, that machine really, you know, got in gear, and we didn't quite make it, which saddened me. But this time I have heard, I haven't been paying as much attention of late because I've been doing other things, but I heard that the corporate machine candidate this time is Jesse Arreguin. I could be wrong. And you're running against my mayor, who I and activist friends helped elect back in 2016. But within a couple of years, he sold out to developers and the police association, and was really sad. He basically lost his base and replaced those monies with developer money. It is what it looks like. So, and even recently, it's unbelievable that Erdogan has prevented a resolution on the ceasefire in Gaza, which just makes no sense. It's such an easy thing to do, and it's such a slam dunk. I mean, why would you not want this? It just seems to me that he's taken orders from somebody in the Democratic machine, and I was wondering if you could kind of provide any insight into like how this process works. It's an outsider. It's kind of confusing, but it seems like he's getting some kind of marching orders, from party apparatchiks, somewhere. And you know, uh, can you provide some insight into how those messages are told? Because this seems like somebody's telling him to do this, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Thanks.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. And, that's a really good point. I don't know how much insight I can actually provide, other than just, sharing my experience, knowing that, for me, having the highest level of integrity is important to me, being completely honest with people, and then being on the right side of history and the right side of issues. I believe there's a right and a wrong side. I don't believe that, if we are in leadership positions, that we should be straddling the fence on life or death issues, like, a ceasefire, a call for a ceasefire. So what I can say is that from my perspective, this is who I strive to be, but not everybody does. For me, I'm gonna I'm gonna do the right thing regardless of what the data shows of the support for it. Um, Although in this case, 85% of Democrats, and I think there's not even just Democrats, pardon me, 80%, I think, of the population. I know that I just saw a recent poll, 85% of Democrats are supporting this, and these are Democrats, he's a Democrat. And still, despite his own party, um, agreeing that a ceasefire is the right thing to do, he's still not complying with it. So I don't know what's going on, other than I know personally, that some people will do whatever it takes to win. And that's unfortunate, because I think for me, staying true to who I am and my integrity is the most important thing. And some people want this power so bad that they're willing to lie, they're willing to change their positions, they're willing to be compromising. And in this case, you're talking about, yeah, Jesse, he's getting a lot of money from developers. And so then he's doing what he feels he needs to do. And if that means, compromising on his original message to the community, then that's what he's going to do, because it seems like, yeah, that's where the money is. And so that's where he's going with. And that's really unfortunate. And there are other candidates in this race who unfortunately are not are doing whatever they need to do, even if it means, like I said, selling us out. They're doing it to win. And that's something that I'm proud to never have done. I'm going to win based on my values, and my hope is that you all and the majority of folks in this district are going to agree with these values that we share. But if it's not enough people who share that value, then that would be unfortunate. Um, so I can't say more than that, and that's why it's so important to really know your candidates and know their track record and know where money's coming from. And one of the ways you can always tell, who a candidate, where their money's coming from, look at the back of these mailers, these fancy mailers, who's paying for those, who's paying for it. But yeah, I do believe that, and I'm hanging on the hope that people understand, the correlation between electing corporate free candidates and getting truly, I think, effective, honest, elected officials? That's a hard question, and like I said, I hope I can't speak for him, but I can speak for me and what I've seen and doing this work for as long as I have.
Nikki Bas, did you want to add anything to this topic? I know that was a fairly specific question about Jesse Arreguin, but it comes up in every race, in some way.
Yeah, maybe I'll add something based on the fact that I called a special meeting so that we could hear a ceasefire resolution, and we were able to pass it in Oakland unanimously. I think one of the issues which Jovanka spoke to is politicians having backbone, and that backbone is being able to withstand backlash you get when you stand up. And so, in my work, as I've really pushed for a broader public safety system that's, comprehensive, that includes, effective, accountable policing, and very importantly, violence prevention, alternative crisis response, really focusing on the care and the root causes that are needed in our communities. I've gotten backlash on that, and certainly in bringing forward, being the first on the council to issue a public letter calling for a ceasefire and scheduling that meeting, and subsequently have faced some backlash. And I think that's part of the reason why you see reluctance on ceasefire and other issues, is because not everyone is willing to stand up and face the backlash that we get.
Okay, next, Dorothy Graham, go ahead and unmute.
I'm retired now. Before I retired, the director of Alameda Health Consortium. I was Island and I kind of had a contrast between the two positions that you're running for, because with Supervisor Carson, I mean, he was a massive leader in this area, and I feel like his departure leaves a huge hole in healthcare advocacy. And two issues that, I mean, he was like really the go-to person on was advocacy around single payer healthcare, not only locally, but on the state level. And then also defending our public health system against privatization pushes, which in the long period of time that I worked with him for like 30 years on the board, there were numerous attempts to privatize Highland, shut down Fairmont. Tragically, we lost some of our incredible county clinics like Central Health Center, which was our largest clinic. So obviously, Nikki, I just like to know, on those areas where Keith was like our go-to person, what you might do. And then Jovanka, I know I worked on your campaign in the assembly, and I just feel, it's kind of a different issue where now we have this corporate tool there. And I mean, I guess she'll sign on to something, because of which district she represents, but she in no way is an advocate. And similarly with Nancy Skinner, I mean, on our single payer bills, I mean, I believe she signs on, but in no way is she a leader in that. So I guess like for both of you, I'd just like to know how you will take leadership in those areas. Thank you.
That's a really good question, and it was do you mind, I'm sorry, do you mind repeating it, or Nikki, if you understood it, maybe once you start talking, it'll come
Sure,
back.
I don't mind going first. It might have been a bit more relevant to me, given the work, Dorothy, that you've done with Supervisor Carson. So, firstly, I agree, Supervisor Carson has quite a legacy in terms of healthcare and healthcare equity. And like I said earlier, I want to build my team that's going to work with me. The county is our public healthcare system, and I'm fully committed to strengthening it, both in terms of our hospitals, as well as our health clinics, as well as the social service providers that are part of that system. I support single payer. I'll be looking at how, the state will be looking at how to implement that system. And certainly healthcare for all is something that I support. And I think that my commitment shows in that I do have the sole endorsement from the California Nurses Association and the National Union of Healthcare Workers, as well as a few unions like SEIU 2015, the long-term healthcare workers. So I'm fully committed. And I also do not support the privatization of our hospitals. There's a few hospitals that we need to be following, including St. Rose. And my hope is that it will come under AHS, the Alameda Healthcare Systems, rather than get privatized. I think we have to make sure that across the entire county, that there is a public hospital for people to go to. I don't want to presume I can sort of step into his shoes by any means, but I certainly have the commitment to carry on that legacy. And in terms of building my team, Dorothy, I'll put my email into the chat right now, because I'd love to stay in touch with you, Orlando, and other people who can really help work with me once I'm in office.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support, just long-term support, Dorothy. Thank you. And I still don't, I apologize. I still not sure what the question as it relates to maybe the statewide race. So apologize.
Thank you. He just unmuted me. I guess what I was saying is, people we have in the state Senate and Assembly now, in spite of how progressive our district is, are not advocates really in these areas. And therefore, I mean, I'm looking to you, wondering, how you would see your role in advocating for, I guess now we call it CalCare, but for single payer system, and also for preventing the privatization of our public hospital and clinic systems.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's, I'm gonna keep saying it, political will and electing corporate free candidates. I think that is sort of, is the answer. And I've been a healthcare professional for a total of 34 years. I've seen resources dwindle when it comes to supporting people with mental health challenges. And it's frustrating. I know as a consumer, and because it was incredibly frustrating to me as a provider. And so that frustration, I want to take and to make sure, like take my frustration to the state to make sure that we start to, that we understand the importance of funding hospitals. Healthcare is a human right. It should not be profit driven. And I don't believe that our healthcare system, hospital system, should be profit driven. And that's the kind of fight that I'm ready to take to the Senate.
All right, the floor is open. If anyone wants to raise their hand and make a comment or ask a question. While other people are considering that, I'll go ahead and interject one. Here, for me and others of us who put a lot of time into keeping the Green Party going here in Alameda County, it's sometimes a head scratcher why we can't get more people to register green. We talk to people on the streets, tabling, and we say, what are your values? And we talk to them and we think, actually, their values are green values. If you look on the Green Party website, you can see we actually have 10 key values, and that's kind of what is our driving force. And when I look at the Democrat Party website, for example, or Republican, it's a little less clear. The Democrats have a big umbrella, even bigger and bigger these days, it seems, where anywhere from a progressive to a centrist to someone who's almost like might as well be a Republican, they're all in there. So it can be hard to choose based on party alone, and it also kind of ends up feeling like a football game, you know, like this team versus that team. So I love your thoughts on that, and especially in the sense of, you know, we've got two great, thank you for being here, both of you, and your values are basically aligned with Green Party values. What would it take for you, or even what would you think about other people registering Green? It's kind of a way to, beyond elections, it would actually send a big message if a lot of people change their voter registration. And a lot of people are actually, they're changing to independent or no party preference, but it doesn't send a strong as message of what people voting for their values and registering for your values. So that's my comment, and appreciate any thoughts you have on that.
You know, I just sent out an email from the campaign, and so if there's anyone on this call who doesn't get it, please put your email in the chat, and I'll be sure to forward it to you, because it talked about my appreciation for the, you know, your support, the Green Party support, and it's entitled Class Struggle Solidarity. Like, this is we are part of class. It's a class struggle that we're faced with, right? It's a class struggle. It's not, you know, necessarily black, white, you know, party affiliation. And, you know, we have a common interest, regardless of how, you know, how we, what our affiliations are. But I believe that democracy, like for us to truly have true democracy, I really think that we have to expand this two-party system. I don't like it. I think that everyone, Greens, and other folks who have different party affiliations should be on the debate stage. Everyone should have the opportunity to hear, you know, what we are. It works in other, you know, other countries where it isn't just two parties. And so, you know, I think that there's just not a lot of encouragement in this country for people to deviate from these two parties, and I just don't think that that's fair. I don't think that it's conducive to, you know, true democracy.
Thank you for that comment and observation, Justin. You know, I think that we would be so much better served without a two-party system with a number of parties. And, you know, I am really proud to have the endorsement of the Green Party. I'm really proud to have the endorsement of East Bay DSA, and to be openly running again as a Democratic Socialist, just like I did for my reelection for City Council. And you know, for me, that's a part of being much more clear about my values. And I think, you know, there are people who certainly are working towards having the Democratic Party, at least locally, be more representative of progressive values. And I think this is a moment where organizing at every level is really important. You know, the organizing within the Democratic Party, as well as organizing within the Green Party. And, you know, my daughter is 14 years old. You know, she became an activist when George Floyd was murdered. She became more of an activist and much more clear about where she stands politically after seeing what, you know, well, continuing to see what's happening to the people of Palestine. And I think if we're going to be successful, we have to really connect with younger people and organize younger people, because they are crystal clear. We're in climate chaos, that, you know, the killings and the war in so many places don't make sense. And I think we have to figure out how we connect with the moral clarity that I think a lot of younger people have, and use that to build a much more progressive movement, and potentially a multi-party system.
All right, thanks both for that response. Floor is still open. We do only have 5 minutes left, so we're getting close. So unless anyone's going to raise their hand here, I think we can probably, you know, turn it over to our candidates for just one final wrap up. And if there's anything else you want to say, or things coming up on your calendars and, events or things that ways people can engage. I'm not seeing any hands. So, yeah. Oh, Orlando, I see you. Go ahead and unmute.
I just want to say thank y'all for taking y'all time. I know the work that y'all doing right now is very hard and difficult, especially with Jovanka running in the race, Nikki and y'all in the race. I've been doing this over 23 years, running, Wilson, my mentor, and so forth. But I just encourage y'all just to stay focused, keep your mind on the gym, and keep your thoughts on the treadmill. Never give up. Don't let these people come around you and try to backslap you or, use like Smurf as a prime example. But us as Greens, we here, solidarity. Y'all have our 10 core values, and me and Justin, being on the national level, on the credential committee, I would love to keep the word out for you guys. And, you women, and let's go Green 2024.
Thanks, Orlando. All right. Well, I'll turn it over to, in any order, whoever wants to jump in, the two candidates to give us a final wrap up.
Y'all, I just thank you so much again for taking the time. Thank you so much for your support. It's absolutely appreciated, and it's such an honor for you all to be a part of this class struggle that we are in, and we are not going to be able to win this struggle in silos. We are not going to be able to win it independent of each other. It's going to take us uniting in solidarity, standing in solidarity, regardless of what our affiliation are. And you all are proof that this is how it works. This is how it's done. That, we support people who share our values. And that's the most important point, or, key issue is our values in this. So thank you so much for your support. We are going to be having a volunteer supporter appreciation watch party on May 5th. So you all are invited to it. Again, shoot me an email and I can give you more information, but the address, and it'll be good because it's you can walk from Fruitvale BART, and the address is if those of you are, I'll put it in the chat when Nikki is when she starts talking. But yeah, I'm mentioning this because I would love for you all to come and join in the celebration, because how beautiful that for us to show the diversity of what a people powered, grassroots, corporate free, people over profit movement looks like. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed this time together, and certainly want to stay connected with you as I campaign and also as I put my agenda together. So I've really enjoyed this time, and definitely appreciate the endorsement, appreciate being in the voter guide and reaching the Green Party members across the county. We know what it takes to win elections. It is resources, because we need to print mail and lawn signs and really share our message. And it also takes voting. So I'll put my website in the chat one more time. We do have a canvas the next 2 Saturdays, and we'll be canvassing GOTV weekend. You can reach out to my team, because if you're willing to walk your neighborhood, phone your neighborhood, we can set you up with the PDI app, and you can do voter engagement, on your own time schedule. But certainly if you're able to make a donation, if you're able to come out and canvass with us, that will make a difference. This race came up very quickly. So I literally had, it's only been less than 2 months since I filed my papers to run, and 3 more weeks until the election. So it's a really short timeline to build up the infrastructure and get out there. So, I really encourage all of you to volunteer with those of us who are corporate free candidates. We don't have the same level of funding to do as many mailers or what have you. It's really going to take the people power. So hope to see some of you at our canvases, and thank you.